Namaskar. It's nice to be back here in Gurgaon today. It's Nayaswami Dhyana is in Noida. We have traded. Today's subject is, I think in the beginning of the spiritual life, it's very much a part of, I know for myself and many of my friends that I grew up spiritually with, the idea of liberation. Liberation in this lifetime. Question mark. Exclamation point. I know those of you who are familiar with Kriya Yoga and the Kriya initiation know that during the Kriya initiation, there's a special occasion, and it's not secret, so I'm sharing it to those who are unfamiliar, is in commemoration of the blessing of the ceremony, we have what's called a Babaji drink. And it's a special drink that Babaji gave Lahiri Mahashai in the autobiography of a yogi. And it's bananas and raisins and milk. It's quite yummy, but that's really not the subject. In fact, it's so yummy, it's distracted my thoughts. But when we drink the drink, we make a spiritual wish. We make a spiritual wish, and in those early years at Ananda, I'm under the impression, I know it was true for myself, that we wished for liberation in this lifetime. It was supposed to be a spiritual wish. You weren't supposed to wish for a new car or anything like that, but it should be spiritual. And I think most of us, like I said, I certainly myself, we wished for liberation in this lifetime. And we as young Americans were, because we had read in the autobiography of a yogi, in the chapter on Kriya Yoga, that all you need to do is 8 hours of Kriya for 3.5 years and you're there. Because Kriya practice is the equivalent, one Kriya is theoretically the equivalent of 1 year of living in natural harmony with life. And as we heard in the reading, it takes 1,000,000 years of living in harmony of the natural positive influences of the creation in order to evolve back to awareness of spirit rather than thinking that we're living only in the body personality. But then in the reading it also says that since we don't live in harmony, it takes 2,000,000 years. But if you read it carefully, he actually says 2,000,000 years will scarcely suffice. Meaning it actually takes a lot longer. He doesn't, in fact, like to discuss how long it actually takes. And you may remember in the New Path when Kriyanandaji asked Master, "Have I been with you before?" and Master said, "Oh, many times." and Swamiji felt bad. He thought, well, maybe I'm just a slow learner. He says, well, does it always take that long? And Master said, oh yes. So when I was thinking about this subject, I was thinking, well, wait a minute. I don't want to leave the message that it isn't going to happen. So, well, might as well give up today. And then you have to bring in the teaching of karma and the power of the energy of our past is so strong that it's very difficult to act without that influence. And then the question is it even possible to act without that influence? The way that Sri Yukteswar described it is that it's like we're on a train. Our karma is the train, but we can go to different areas in the train. You can go to the front of the train or the back of the train, but you can't get off the train. So then, still again, you say, well, wow, if I have so many limited options, well, why do I bother? It'll just take care of itself. Well, in its own way, it actually will. Because life forces us over time to grow. But that 1,000,000 or 2,000,000 years can be stretched to really a long, long time. And eventually, the soul feels motivation. You feel like you just can't stand to be a king one more time. You can't stand to do anything that you really enjoy. Because if you really enjoy it, you've already spent incarnations doing it. Because when you have an ice cream cone, if you like ice cream, and the first time that you have an ice cream cone, you're hooked. You're going to enjoy ice cream for the rest of your life. And some people, of course, are going to be obsessed with it. And that will become their favorite dessert, and they'll do it all the time. They may even do it to the point of getting sick, in which case they cause negative repercussions while they have enjoyment. And of course, this is the circumstance that we all live in. We live in this world bound by our various forms of involvement, the things that we like, the things that we don't like. And that isn't just the pleasures like food or entertainments, but it's job, it's relationships, it's driving down the street, it's every circumstance in life puts us in the position of, how do I feel about this? Do I like this? I don't like this. And this is the way that we're used to living. We're used to living in the I like it and I don't like it. When you're a child, this is how you decide. I like this food and I don't like that food. You just get it out of there. I don't want it. And it reminds me of a time when my children were young, and we were at the dinner table. Twins, they're adults now, but a son and a daughter, and they're at the table, and of course the vegetable comes. And my kids were generally good at eating healthy food, but we had zucchini. And it's kind of a little squishy in the middle if you cook it too much. And my son didn't like that texture. He didn't like the texture of the cooked zucchini. So he didn't want to eat it. And of course, I had one of those moments when, as many times as I vowed that I would never be like my father, I became like my father. And I said, eat it. You have to eat it. And so there I was, and of course, it didn't take me long to look back and say, I was controlled by my karma. I couldn't help myself. I did it in spite of a very strong personal dislike for my father's style. And so I vowed it many times, I'm not going to act like that. And yet there I was doing the same thing that he did to me. And of what was the result? My son put it in his mouth eventually, and then he spit it right back out, choking. He just couldn't even get it down. And then I was creating karma for myself. Not only was I controlled by my past karma, but I was now using the energy of that past karma to involve in this tug of war with the will of my son. Fortunately, that wasn't a major problem in our relationship, but we are controlled by things that we can't control. So if we want to understand liberation, we think of liberation most commonly, at least I did. Liberation means samadhi. You're aware of the infinite spirit, and you just don't even care about anything physical. You're just freed from this world, but not just free to go on vacation in the astral realm, but freed from any limitation. Satchidananda, freed in spirit. All of the attributes, the aspects of God that we talk about in the classes, that's what we are. That's liberation. Well, but we have this, we're bound by this momentum, this karmic momentum. Master said that self-realization is the knowing in body, mind, and spirit that you are now in the possession of the kingdom of God. The knowing in body, mind, and spirit that you are now in the possession of the kingdom of God. Well, I think that we don't know exactly what that means. I think that there's a lot of fertile ground for imagination, and it's not just samadhi. You go into the cave, you go in your meditation room, and you bliss out, and that's the ultimate in a certain way. But if you look at the self-realization tradition, you see the greatest disciples were very active in life. And all of the masters, well, Sri Yukteswar wasn't, before he was Swami, he was a householder. So he clearly had involvements in life, and he owned the ashram, and he even had to deal with a lawsuit. And so all of our examples in our path are that you can be liberated, you can be identified in body, mind, and spirit with God, but simultaneously you can relate to life. You can deal with life in this world. And this is really one of the great messages of the path of self-realization. But we have to understand that that doesn't mean it's good enough just to be well-behaved. We are not seeking simply to follow the rules of our path. Okay, we don't have too many rules. If you take Kriya, you say you'll practice every day. That's about as close to a rule as we have. I mean, we really don't have a list of things that you have to do and that you don't have to do. Because self-realization is about our inner relationship with life, with God, with the universe. It's not about what it looks like on the outside. Look at the different clothing everybody's wearing. But all that clothing serves the same purpose, to protect you from the world, whether it be heat or whatever. We get involved in it in that it then becomes, we think that it projects who we are as a person. We become identified in our personality. So, oh, well, my clothing, I wear these clothing because I'm this style of person or that style of person. I've always loved that. I think in America, the group that one of the groups that personified what I want to talk about is the Hells Angels. You know, this is a group of rough people. They wear all the leather jackets and with the studs, and they have, well, tattoos are incredibly popular today, but they were the ones that made tattoos popular. And they have this rebellious attitude. Nobody can tell me what to do. And yet if you look at the way they all dress the same. They tell themselves what to do. You don't see a Hell's Angel wearing a suit and a tie. So they have their own rules. They have their own set of limitations. They have their own set of ways of saying that I'm identified by looking like this, acting like this. All of those various styles of identification are limitations. We're seeking to free ourselves from those limitations. It's one of the reasons why renunciates wear only one color. They've given up, when you only wear one color, it's not a challenge to figure out what to wear in the morning. And you don't spend time in front of the mirror going, oh, does this look nice? Hey, is it clean? Okay, let's go. It really simplifies stuff. It's actually nice. But would we really want everyone to be wearing the same uniform? No, it's God's nature to be creative, to have diversity. So the key is to have unity of spirit with diversity of expression. And this is what we see God doing in life. There is an incredible diversity of expression, but underneath it all, there is unity. And that unity is what we seek to be aware of and to recognize that our true state as a soul is unified infinite consciousness, not separateness, not aloneness that most people experience. It's me against the world. No, you are the world. There is no separation. But the way that we transcend the separateness is all of the practices that we do in the spiritual life. Our sadhana, our lifestyle, the people that we associate with, the things that we do. All of these things lead us towards a greater identification with spirit rather than with separateness and the body personality. So, liberation in this lifetime. Yes, Kriya Yoga is the great accelerator. It's a great power to speed up the process. But it's speeding up a process that's taking place already, even if you don't have Kriya. And it shouldn't be seen as the sole definition of the way to become freed. And freed from limitation of consciousness, freed from the circle of life, death, and rebirth. Always having to come back to the prison of the body personality. Now, if you're a great saint, the body personality doesn't bother you because you can still commune with infinite spirit and work through a body. So what we need to do is recognize that liberation is not just the practice of one technique and everything else is separate, is basically just stuff that you have to do because you're here. All of it is connected. This is one of the perspectives that Brother Lawrence, who was a Christian saint, he said that his goal was, because he's a saint and they've got him washing dishes. This was his job. And he said, my goal is that I should feel God's presence just as much while I'm washing the dishes as when I'm in the chapel. That there should be no separation. And this is one of the key understandings in the spiritual life. It's interesting, having watched Kriyanandaji for over 40 years, when I first met him, and for most of the time that I'd known him, he was quite strong in saying, I never want to come back into the creation. I'm done. I'm absolutely finished. I just don't want to come back. There was no question about it. I mean, there was never any. But in the last year or two, before his passing, he said, well, if Master wants me to come back, I'll come back. Because I feel so, I am interested in helping people. I feel a great caring and love for those who are in the battle still. So what changed? After so many years, and we grow up with this, I like to say, samadhi or bust. You just got to do it. You got to do it as fast as possible. Kriyanandaji said that he never experienced samadhi in this lifetime. But what he did experience was this incredible two things. One is synchronicity. In everything that happened in his life, he felt that synchronicity with spirit, and he would so much find himself in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, saying the right thing. And he said to me, he says, I don't know why, but I just know that this is so. He lived without, in complete commitment to and dedication to spirit, without the comfort of samadhi, without the comfort of that. Now, I'm not saying he didn't have deep spiritual experiences. He did. he didn't spend a lot of time talking about them. He was a little more forthcoming later in life. And if you saw him later in life, you saw that there was, and he described it as this upwelling of joy, of bliss. And it was overwhelming sometimes. He said he can just hardly keep it together. It would be so strong. Now, this is really important information for us, because we need to realize that we don't need to achieve samadhi. We don't need to have a preconception about what liberation, or at least what would be the most that we could accomplish in this lifetime towards liberation, as things that we can't seem to do. How many people are meditating as much as they think they should? Nobody. How many are meditating as much as they want to? Nobody. You're never going to be satisfied. And you're going to feel like somehow your life is holding you back. It is. Karma. But you can reverse it. Master said there's no such thing as obstacles, only opportunities. In every moment of life, there is the opportunity to see my confusion and to be caught up in it, or spirit. Whether it be just longing for spirit, being mad at spirit, or actually feeling joyful, positive feelings towards spirit. It doesn't matter. I realized in the early years, I used to berate myself for all of the things that I wasn't doing spiritually. I would just like my dad used to complain about what I was doing, I complained to myself. There I was doing to me what my dad was no longer doing to me. By having this negative attitude about all the things that I wasn't doing. So I was complaining about not doing things for God. And later I realized that even the thought of God connected to a personal complaint is the thought of God. God was on my shoulder while I was complaining about what I wasn't doing. Well, this changes things a little bit for us. We need to realize that God isn't nearly as far away as we think God is. Liberation isn't very far away. Master said that even to want to know God means, relative to your journey through the creation, you're very close. Incarnation, 5 incarnations, even 1,000 incarnations is nothing compared to those millions, many millions of years that have brought us to this point. So, one of the things that we can do with this is begin to free ourselves from the thought that God isn't present. We need to begin to shift the way that we relate to life. And instead of thinking, God is in the meditation room, I haven't experienced God yet because I haven't been in samadhi. If you see a person, you see the front of me, but you can't see the back, can you? So would you say that you can see me or not see me? Most people say, oh, I see you, but I only see some of you. Yes? When you meet people and you talk to them, you meet them, but you don't see all of them. You see only some of them because they have thoughts that even they don't want to look at, to say nothing of not wanting to share them with anybody else. So we have a limited perception even of the world that we live in, and yet we think that we're seeing it. And we're seeing some of it. Well, we see some of God all the time. We experience some of God every day in every breath. In fact, the very fact that we breathe and live means that God is present, because God is everything. God has made the creation and sustains the creation. So therefore, by definition, God is present in every breath, in every thought, in every situation. Maybe not all of God, but some of God. And since God is infinite bliss, God is infinite peace, infinite love, infinite positivity in any form, infinite solution to every challenge, God is present. All we need to do is practice perceiving that presence. And then we may not be fully liberated at the end of this incarnation, but we can be liberated from that level of, whatever level of separateness, of aloneness that we experience. Whatever we think that I'm a this, all these self-identifications, we can free ourselves from some of it. And the more we get into this, the more you practice it, it's like getting to know a new friend. Or you meet a new person, you don't know them well, you might feel a certain sympathy with them, empathy. I instantly like this person. Okay, I feel good about them, but I don't really know them. But then you begin to have a relationship and you build it up. And then over a period of time, you could say, well, I know them well. This is one of the reasons we describe God as Father, Mother, and friend, or even beloved. There's many ways to relate to God, not just God as that infinite unknowable that you can't describe with a human mind. God is the highest thing that you can experience now. That is just some of God. That time when you have felt peaceful, that time when you did feel inspired in some way. And even if you didn't feel inspired, the aspiration to feel inspiration is God. Every positive thing that you experience in life is God saying, come on, let's go. Let's walk down the journey of life together. And in that relationship, we begin to free ourselves from the thought that I even need to worry about liberation. I don't need to worry about that. And this is where the two sides of the coin in life come in. You actually do need to be motivated. You have to want God. You have to say, I am interested, I am determined. I am never going to turn away, I'm never going to give up, and to the extent that I can, I'm going to increase that in my life until my dying day. At the same time, we have to trust that we are in God's arms. We have to surrender to God's will for our lives. We have to trust, did not God bring us to this point? Did not God bring us to this opportunity to have not just one master, but a line? I mean, we're in good shape. We have such a fabulous team on our side. God has really sent us a fabulous opportunity. What could be better than that? When I read Autobiography of a Yogi, I thought the greatest opportunity would be to be like that disciple who hunted Babaji in the mountains. And of course, he had that bad moment where he had to jump off the cliff because Babaji said he wasn't ready. He wasn't capable of being with them in his current state of consciousness. But by sacrificing himself instantly, that act was so powerful, that act of trust, of faith, of determination, that it then allowed him to stay. That is not the only picture of dedication, determination that is a good one. And we look at Kriyanandaji's life and we see he had so many incredible life challenges. It wasn't an easy life. But if you asked him, how's your life been? He says, oh, it's been great. Because his mind wasn't turned towards those challenges, it was turned towards that inner relationship. That he said something so. It was one of those, we call them Freudian slips, things that you accidentally say that reveal something about your mind that you didn't necessarily intend to communicate. When he was speaking at the Material Success Launch, this was 2006 here in Gurgaon, and he said. He was introducing himself, and he said, and I have lived with Yogananda for over 60 years. And then he went on, but he died in 1952. He said, huh? Probably most people didn't get that little. He's lived with Yogananda for 60 years, but he died in What does that mean? That means that he had an ongoing inner relationship with Master. All of those years, he'd been living with Yogananda. God was present in his life. This is the key to liberation. Not so much worrying about where we're going to end up. What Master said, the minutes are more important than the years. How do we spend each minute, even if it's complaining about not doing enough spiritually? Talk to God, tell God, it's, Lord, why don't you make me a better disciple? Even that conversation of giving your challenges to God. Or, God, why did that person's car just get in front of me? Why didn't I get that job? Share it all with God. Be with God. Live in God. That is liberation. Liberation from the prison of separateness from God. So maybe you're not out of the prison all the way. You're out far enough that it's incredibly comforting. It's incredibly joy-producing. It's inspiring. It doesn't take much of something infinite to feel really good about it. Think about your very best meditation. Think that's just the beginning. Just the beginning. But we don't need to think separateness. We need to think of oneness. So, can we be liberated in this lifetime? Yes. Will we? We don't know. We just simply don't know. There was a number of people in the ashram with Master who didn't appear on the outside to be particularly advanced. They were odd. And yet Master said they would be freed. We really don't even know where we stand. Why look at it? Why be bound by it in the negative? Be encouraged by the fact that God has given each and every one of us this incredible teaching, these incredible techniques, and this understanding that God is present and knowable, and that we can know God every day in every life experience a little bit more. And in that is we are freed from the suffering consciousness that most people live in every day. And I think if you were to talk to people who have been associated with this path for many years, you would find something that everybody would say. You just can't even imagine anyone not saying, well, I'm sure a lot happier than I was when I started. I'm sure a lot happier than when I started. Just for that, it's worth it. But then the horizons never end. There is no limit to spirit. And the masters have promised to take care of us, to guide us, as long as we hold up our side of the relationship, we don't turn away. So let your discipleship be your pathway to liberation. Think not so much about where you're going to end up. Think about offering yourself, surrendering yourself to God's will in your life, harmonizing with it, being with it. Don't think that you need to be somewhere else so much. Be with God right where you are. Sister Yanamata said, where God has placed you right here and now, could you know Spirit more successfully? Most of the time that's true. Certainly we can improve some things in our lives. Positive change is good. But we need to not limit our happiness by thinking that, I'm going to be better when this happens, when that happens outwardly. No. Be happy today. Be happy even in not knowing God. Say, God, I know I don't know you very well, but I'm going to know you. And just thinking about knowing you makes me feel better. And in that internal relationship, we find an incredible liberating experience separate from that ultimate liberation. And let's all determine and pay attention to introspect, practice all of the various techniques that we do in order to increase your sense of God's presence in your life. And Master said, don't say you don't have him. Say, I have him, I have him. Live in that positive thought. Namaskar.